Students, today we are going to start civics chapter 2 of class 10, that is federalism. So continuing with the topic of power sharing, the very spirit of power sharing says that there should be federalism. Federalism literally means that there is a division of power between the two or more levels of government, that is what is called as a federalism. So federalism is a true practice of democracy. So there is a central government and there is a state government. The central government is responsible for the entire country, and there are provincial or state government respectively for the different states. They are responsible for the day-to-day administration of the state. So federalism can be contrasted with the unitary form of government. Unitary form of government is a single form of government where there is only one level of government for the entire country. That is what is called as a unitary form of government. There may be provincial government, but provincial government are not so powerful vis-a-vis the central government. But in federalism, there is equal practice. The state government are not subordinate to the central government. The central government cannot order or dictate over the provincial or the state government. So there are some key features of federalism. Let's understand what are the key features of federalism. So basically what federalism says that there are two or more levels of government. The first point says that there are two or more levels of government. Example is the central government and the state government. Next, the different tiers of government rule the same set of citizens. That means the citizens are not different, but the level of jurisdiction is only different. Means the level of framing of law and exercise upon the people is only different, but the government remains the same for the entire country of India. Next, the different tier of jurisdiction of different levels of government are constitutionally guaranteed. That means the central government, if undermines the power of the state government are not responsible or not accountable to the central government. Next, the fundamental provision of the constitution cannot be unilaterally changed by a single set of government. Courts have the power to interpret the constitution, and the powers of the government are constitutionally guaranteed. The highest court of India, that is the Supreme Court of India, acts as an umpire if any case of disputes arises. And the source of revenue, that is very important, is literally mentioned, and where they can gain their taxes and from where they can generate their revenues. The respective level of government, that is the central government and the state government, is clearly specified in the constitution. So the principle of federalism has dual objectives. So what is the first objective? It is to safeguard and promote the unity of the country, and in the second level it is to accommodate the regional diversity. First is to promote the unity of the country, and second is to accommodate regional diversity. So basically speaking of the framing of the federation, there are two processes in which the federation are framed. One is the coming together federation and another one is the holding together federation. In coming together federation, when a group of states come together and form a bigger union, that is what is called as a coming together federation. But the holding together federation, it is when a big country like India decides to divide its power within different states for administrative convenience. That is what is called as a holding together federation. So coming together federation are more autonomy, and they are more powerful vis-a-vis the coming together federation. The coming together federation example is USA, Switzerland and Australia, and in the holding together example is India, Belgium and Spain. We'll move to the next important issue. What makes India a federal country? So we have different tiers of government, and that is constitutionally guaranteed by the Constitution of India. So the different tiers of government are responsible for different subjects. That means different departments are assigned to different levels of government. First we'll come with the union list. Basically speaking, the union list are the subjects which are of utmost important, and they are of national concern. That means the whole country, pan India, there should be a single level of government who decides upon these subjects. So they are of very important. Examples of these departments of union list are foreign affairs, banking, communication, defense. So these are of utmost importance, and it comes under the preview of the union government or the central government. The union government can alone make laws regarding to these subjects. Next we will come to the state list. State list, the state power, or the state has the power to formulate laws and legislation regarding to the subjects mentioned in the state list. So it comes to the day-to-day administration of the state, and the examples of police, trade, commerce, agriculture, irrigation, etc. comes under the list of the state, and the state has the power to formulate or legislate this departments. Next we will come to the concurrent list. There are some subjects which are common to the both state and the center, and that comes under the concurrent list, and the union government as well as state government can make laws regarding to this, and if there is a deadlock or there is a conflict regarding to the subject of the concurrent list, the matter of the union will prevail. The examples of this concurrent list are marriage, adoption and succession. Let's come to another one issue. So there were some subjects when our independence or when our constitution was made. At that point of time, we had some departments which were not present at the time of making of the constitution. For suppose for example IT or biotechnology. At the time of independence or the making of the constitution, this our constitution makers were unaware regarding to the subjects mentioned here. So now this department are put under a separate head known as the residuary subjects. So the residuary subjects, the power regarding the residuary subjects or the making of legislation regarding to this rests with the union government. The union government is solely responsible for the subjects mentioned in the residuary subjects. Some states of India, let me tell you, have a different jurisdiction, have a different set of jurisdiction. They are not supposed to abide with the rules and laws framed by the Constitution of India. The example of this state is Jammu and Kashmir. So Jammu and Kashmir has its own constitution, and they are not subjected to the Constitution of India unless their legislature feel that should be implemented in their state, that is Jammu and Kashmir, JNK. And there are other special provisions for Jammu and Kashmir, that ordinary Indian citizens cannot purchase plot of land or any kind of property over there until they are a natural resident of Jammu and Kashmir. We have some separate area marked as union territories, UT. So this union territories are special areas. They cannot be called as a state. They are smaller areas which cannot be declared as a separate state, nor they can be given the power or autonomy of a state, or can be included in an existing state. So that's why they are kept separately apart from states, and the power or the making of the legislation or ruling over this union territories rest over the union government. There are 7 union territories in India. These are Chandigarh, Lakshadweep, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Daman and Diu, Puducherry, etc. are the examples of different union territories in India. So the sharing of power between the union and the state government is the basic structure of our country, and our federalism is the pillar or the cornerstone which supports the federalism in India. So any change, there cannot be any change. If there is any change, it has to be passed by both the houses of parliament with at least 2/3 of the majority. Then it has to be rectified by the legislature of at least half of the Indian states. The judiciary also plays an important role in this, and it implements the constitutional provisions and safeguards our Indian constitution. So in case of any dispute, the division of powers in the High Court and Supreme Court make a decision regarding to it. The union and state government have the power and resources to levy different taxes. In order to impose different taxes, the imposition of taxes is called as a levy. So next will come very important feature here. So page number 18, you will see there is a map which explains India, which didn't had any kind of political territory, marked political territory in the year 1947. In page number 19 of your civics book, you can see there is another one political map which has clearly demarcated states. In 1947 map, you see it is British India. In this point of time, there are states which didn't had any kind of political boundary lines, and people were split into various parts, and the clear cut definition of the states have not been mentioned here. There were many states earlier during the British era, and in 1947 they were existent, but in 2000 this in the political map of India you won't find this states like Rajputana, Central India, Central Provinces, and United Provinces. This are not available in current map. So these states have literally vanished and new states have come in their place. So the very important experiment in independent India was the experiment of linguistic states. What is linguistic states? Linguistic states means the creation of states in the line of language. That is what is called as the linguistic states. uh, After independence there was a momentum between different people of India, in South India, in North India, and various places. They wanted that the regional languages should be the basis of distinction of the states, and political leaders of our time who had fought for the freedom had also promised our people that after India gains independence there will be states divided on the basis of language. But this thing was resisted for quite a period of time, because our national leaders thought that India would be more fragmented if they are divided into the linguistic states. So it was resisted, but a person named Poti Siramallu, he died after a long hunger strike. So this movement became violent, and our national leader had to reconcile to the idea of linguistic states. And from then on, we originated with the principle of linguistic states. But all the states are not divided on the basis of language. In order to give importance and in order to give recognition to certain languages or certain culture, the states have been divided, such as Nagaland, Uttarakhand, Jharkhand. These are the examples of states where not only basis of language, but to understand the cultural plurality and to give advantage to the culture, these areas have been divided. The demand for the formation of state on the basis of language was raised, and the national leaders were apprehensive not to make them into linguistic state. But till now, the after the creation of the linguistic state, India have run under unity, and it has proved very successful in this democratic experiment. This is for the class, and next we'll continue with the language policy of India. Thank you.